What's going on, everyone? I hope you're having a great day today. I'm Chance from Chappell Sound, and today we're going to be going over something I know many of you have questions about: Pro Tools. Pro Tools is quite complex, allowing for you to do just about anything you desire in it. While that complexity is part of what makes Pro Tools great, it can be challenging to beginners to wrap their heads around it. Before we begin, if you like this video and want to learn more about Pro Tools, go to my channel Chappell Sound and subscribe to stay updated about when my full Pro Tools course drops. A quick note, there used to be a huge difference between Pro Tools versions such as LE, HD, and HDX, and that affected which interfaces they could work with. Not anymore. Pro Tools will work with just about any audio interface on the market, and the standard version runs off of your computer processing, which most modern computers give you enough of to be okay. In terms of hardware, all you actually need is a computer, such as a MacBook Pro, and an iLok, which is a USB dongle to store your Pro Tools license. For this video, let's get started with the basics of Pro Tools. As soon as you open up Pro Tools, you see it'll scan all of your plugins, which it will do every time. On the subject of plugins, if you've ever installed the AAX version of any plugins you have, that is the Pro Tools extension. Pro Tools does not work with VSTs or AUs by default, but there are some wrappers out there that seem to do the job. Next, you'll see this window, which you can turn off manually, but I find it very useful. It allows you to create a session or load a recent session. When creating a session, you have the option of creating one from scratch or using a template using this Create from Template button here. And you can choose whether that be an Avid template or a third-party template, such as those you can find on chappellsound.com, shameless plug. Next, you can choose your I/O settings down here, which stereo mix is the default. They give you a few more defaults, and you can make your own, of which I've set up for my interface. If you're without an interface, you can use the stereo mix option. Next, you choose your sample rate depending on your I/O device. So, since we're recording a video, I have 48 kilohertz selected, and you can choose your bit depth between 16, 24, and 32. Finally, at the bottom here, you have the option to manually choose a save location, which is useful for doing a full album where you can save everything in one place, or you can have the option to manually choose the location each time, useful for if you're not on a private computer. Pro Tools creates a file folder which houses everything related to the session, including the session file. When we create our session, which I'll pull up one that I have created for this video, we can see that everything is blank, and you'll either be looking at the edit window, which is this right here, or the mix window, which is this window. The way to cycle through them is Command or Control equals Command on the Mac and Control on the PC. So let's start by adding a new audio track, a new aux track, and a master fader. One important thing to note before we do that, however, is that Pro Tools uses the old SSL means of routing, meaning our master fader will show us everything going on level-wise, but sessions can be run without one. By pressing Command N, I can create these new tracks and cycle through the types by using Command or Control plus the arrow buttons, such as audio, aux, master fader, VCA master, MIDI track, instrument track, and back to audio. So if we switch over to the mix window, up here is our plugin rack, referred to as inserts, and we can have up to 10 inserts per track. This is where you will put things such as equalizers and compressors on audio tracks, or virtual instruments on instrument tracks, and reverbs and delays on auxiliary tracks. Underneath the inserts, we have the send section, of which we can use up to 10 as well. The easiest way to create a send is to click the star in the panel and then click New Track. Then we create a new track. Let's call it Reverb. This automatically names the bus that Pro Tools uses and makes everything nice and easy to maneuver through. Sends are what we would use for parallel processing such as reverb, delay, and parallel compression. Pro Tools operates on clips instead of patterns or sequences like FL Studio does. This means that new clips have to be manually created and MIDI has to be manually drawn in or played in, rendering it more difficult to make beats in Pro Tools than FL Studio. Pro Tools is mainly used for recording, mixing, and mastering of music rather than the creation of music via MIDI. Speaking of the clip list, you can find any clip that's been used in your session over here on the right by clicking this little arrow out. You can drag this out and see any clip that's in your session. Now, loading up a recent session, you can see that I'm working by having 4-bar loops, giving me flexibility to maneuver and edit as I need. Say I have this 4-bar loop and I want to cut it down to 2 bars. I'm going to do that by using my Smart tool, which is up here. Having the Smart tool on allows you to encompass all 3 of these tools at once: the Trim tool, the Selector tool, and the Grabber tool. So to take 2 bars off of this loop, I can either use my Trim tool and do this, which looks like this. Let's take it to grid mode so I can get it exact. Or I can use my Select tool, and by selecting 2 bars, I can press the backspace or delete key and get rid of it. The shortcut I use for duplicating these clips and making them into the full beat that you see here, you can either hold Option and click, which creates a duplicate of the clip, or you can select by using your Selector tool and press Option R, allowing you to repeat, which basically just copies and pastes the clip. Let's say we want our clip to slow down or speed up at a certain time. Let's say the end, we want it to slow down and make a nice transition into the verse part of the beat. That would be a clip effect, affecting the clip directly. So to have that happen, we would choose Audio Suite. So we go up top to Audio Suite, and these plugins go directly onto the clips before they hit any type of processing on your fader or in your channel. And they are pre-rendered, meaning they don't use processing power, and they're baked in. In this case, we'll want to come to our Audio Suite list, go down to Pitch Shift, and bring up Verify. Then we can highlight the speaker button to hear the effect. Or we can press this render button to go ahead and render it. So now let's listen to the transition. Okay. Next over here is our record section, which we can use on either the mix window or the edit window. We have our record arm button, which means if Pro Tools is sent into record mode, it will have data recorded to it. Next, we have input monitoring, which can be used to listen to an input from your interface, and in my experience using it, acts the same as the record arm button without writing data to the track. Then we have our solo and mute buttons for if we want to solo a track to hear what it's doing on its own, and mute for if we want to listen to everything together except for that track. Sometimes you can forget that you have something soloed or muted, especially in larger sessions, so you can look at the top of your edit window and see either the yellow S or the orange M. So let's try that. And we see the yellow S is highlighted, and now we see that the orange M is highlighted, and that is very useful in larger sessions. One of the most useful tools for recording audio is this button that's either titled Low Latency Monitoring or Delay Compensation. If you have an interface that does any kind of audio routing, there will likely be a delay between that and Pro Tools. The way I record here at home is to use a high hardware buffer, using less CPU, and selecting low latency monitoring, which, since I have a Universal Audio Apollo, cancels out the sound coming from the recorded track in Pro Tools, allowing the artist to hear themselves in real time from the interface. Next, let's get into the transport window, which is one of the most useful windows in Pro Tools. You can access it by going to Window and coming down to Transport, or you can use the shortcut of Command or Control and the number 1 on your keypad, not the one at the top of your keyboard. Accessing this allows you to see your position in the session via the main counter or via the sub counter. You can change these to show bars beats, minutes seconds, time code, feet and frames, or samples. The two I use most in my musical work are the bars beats and minute seconds counters. There are also buttons for skipping to the beginning, rewinding, fast forwarding, and skipping to the end. You also have your play, your stop, and your record ready buttons. When the record ready button is activated, and the track is record armed, you can then press the play button or the space bar to begin rolling. On our right side, we see a few recording options that we have, which is count off, and that selects how many bars you have before Pro Tools actually starts rolling, your time signature, which is 4/4 for this session, and your tempo, which for this session is 84. Underneath, we have MIDI options, which I won't be touching on today, but I will get into in my upcoming course. One of the most important menus in all of Pro Tools is your playback engine window, which you can get to from setup and playback engine. Here, you can change your playback engine to choose which audio device sound is routed through. You can choose the buffer size, with higher being more latent, which is preferable for mixing, and lower having less latency, which is preferable for recording. You can also enable the video engine in this menu. Finally, an easy way to keep up with how much of our computer resources we're using is to come to Window and select our System Usage Monitor. That allows us to see how much of each processor core we're using up, as well as how much RAM and hard drive we're using. Thanks for watching this video, everyone. I hope that it helped you get more familiarized with Pro Tools, and if you enjoyed the video and got something out of it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Chappell Sound, to stay up to date with when I release my full Pro Tools course, showing you all the ins and outs and the how and why. Have a great rest of your day.